Hey everyone, the name is Erik Thor, and in today's video we're talking about something very uplifting and cheerful, which is heartbreak. The reason why I make this video is because, well, most people will experience heartbreak at some point in their life or have experienced it perhaps more than once. And on top of being one of the greatest things a person can go through, there's a general question which I feel like a lot of people never really get the answer to, which is how do you go through heartbreak? What are you supposed to do when you experience heartbreak? How are people generally affected by heartbreak? And to just zoom out, I'd say there is a general human way of experiencing heartbreak. And the general thing that has been shown in psychology is that heartbreak can trigger depression. It can cause people to stop liking and enjoying things that they normally would enjoy. It can cause people to experience physical issues like struggle with sleeping and eating, and it can cause all kinds of major issues, right? But if we zoom in more on the INFP experience, to some extent, you'll find that heartbreak can affect you differently in different situations. But there is one general thing, and that is that when we are in love, right, what tends to happen is that we tend to do things we normally wouldn't do. So when we love somebody, we tend to have more courage, we tend to have more energy, we tend to have more passion than we normally do. The feeling of being in love makes us take more risks, makes us say things we normally wouldn't, makes us engage in passions we normally wouldn't, makes us feel energy and enthusiasm that we normally would not have. And so goes with INFP. INFPs tend to generally experience that when in love, extroverted intuition tends to take on a front seat in your cognitive personality, but that when we experience heartbreak, it tends to be the other way around, and introverted sensing tends to take over. And so what you can find as an INFP perhaps is that while normally as an INFP you tend to be much more connected to your own emotions and to your own feelings, and while normally as an INFP you tend to have a sense of curiosity and fascination with life and why we're here and the bigger existential questions, during times of heartbreak, it's very common for INFPs to go back to a more traditional, more simple way of living life, focusing on the bare essentials of practical everyday life. Beyond that, INFPs in heartbreak tend to become more cold, more detached, and more logical than they normally might be. A reason for this is because it helps you kind of distract yourself from the emotions that you might not want to face. While intuition and feeling certainly help make your life feel more rich as an INFP, when your feelings are more negative and when you're experiencing difficult emotions and when you are feeling a sense of loss, this can cause you to want to separate yourself from even the things that make you who you are, right? And so INFPs can find themselves not really acting like themselves. And it's common in these processes, because it's a form of grief, right? To, in some way, dive into introverted sensing and to some extent even introverted thinking, right? And here, what you might find yourself doing is you might find yourself feeling more critical in general about things. While normally INFPs tend to be very tolerant and very positive about things, during these stages, it's very common to find yourself criticizing everything about your life, about how you live, about who you are, about what you enjoy and what you do. And it's important to recognize that you do these things because you're trying to do kind of a loss calculation here. You're at the process of time where you've experienced loss and you're trying to see how much did I lose and why did I make this loss and why did this happen to me, right? So your hope is that by going into these functions, you're going to help get a stronger sense of like rational grasp of the situation to make sure that you won't get hurt again in the future and that you won't have to deal with these negative situations again. So these experiences, they exist to kind of teach you to check yourself and to check who you are and to check how you live and to think about those things. But it's also important to recognize that you don't have to make the changes and the suggestions that you think of in this time, because it's very normal in these times to make drastic life changes in how you live your life. It's normal to pull away from friends, to stop doing things that you normally would, and to, in some ways, disconnect. But often it seems to be that we have to learn to do a bit of both. While certainly there is a role of grief during heartbreak, and while grief can be very positive and very important to do, it's also important to not lose your general sense of normalcy and to not lose who you are through these experiences. Because ultimately, you are who you are, and if you don't listen to yourself and if you don't stay connected to yourself, you're going to live a life that makes you miserable. So it's very important that you continually stay connected to yourself and continue to listen to yourself. And it's also important that you continue to do things that you normally would do, and that you continue to reach out to friends and family members and loved ones and other people in your life so that you can maintain other important aspects of your life. It's important to do this because it teaches you that, well, while this was a heartbreak and while this was a really tough thing to go through, it's not the end of the world, and I have a lot of other important things to live for in my life. A third and a very important thing to do is to recognize that love exists in many different forms, right? And that means that while we can certainly experience a very strong and intense love in romantic relationships, love is also something very important in terms of friendship, and most people tend to rate their friendships as more important to their emotional health and well-being than their partners, which means that most people tend to say that they get more satisfaction, more happiness, more joy from spending time with friends than from spending time with their long-term significant other. And so it's very important for you as an INFP to make sure that you have and that you make and continue to hold on to and nurture and take care of friendships in your life. Because while love can come and go and doesn't always end well, friendships tend to remain a very consistent, very important part of our lives for the rest of our lives. I also want to talk about what you can do as an INFP in order to stay connected to yourself in these times. And so when I say it's important to grieve, what I mean is it's very important to continually check in with your feelings, right? And to continually check in with your dreams and thoughts, and to recognize loss and to think about, yes, I did lose something very important to me. Yes, I did care about this very much. Yes, I did really, really like this person. And to continue to recognize these things, because if you can recognize and cherish the positive things about something and continually stay in check with what it is that you like and what it is that you value and what it is that is important to you, it's going to be a lot easier to make positive decisions for yourself moving forward. And it's going to be a lot easier to know what you're going to do next. If you don't grieve, however, it can be very easy to forget what you want, to forget what's important to you, to forget what you care about, and to end up making decisions in your life that can end up making you less happy. I remember once when I experienced a breakup that it was very easy for me to fall into this idea that I felt like, well, because she didn't want to be with me, I had to become a different kind of person in order to be the kind of person that I think she would have wanted to be with, right? And so I made all these changes in my life, and I recognized, later, long after, that, hey, these changes were not for my good. They were not for my benefit. They did not make me a happier person. And certainly, they did not get us back together. And when I thought about it longer, I even realized that I didn't really want to be back together with her, and that it wasn't really a relationship that I was even after in the first place. So this is something I hope that you can also take with you in your life. Make sure that the changes that you make in your life after this and the decisions that you make after this process are for yourself and for your own benefit and because you want it. And continue to ask yourself what it is that you want, what it is that you care about, what it is that is important to you. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you all in the next video.